Imagine a man, let's call him John, who's deeply in love. He does everything he can think of to make his partner happy. He listens attentively to her, showers her with compliments, and always ensures she knows how much he cares. He's there for her whenever she needs him, always putting her first. At first, things go well. She smiles more, seems genuinely appreciative. But over time, something shifts. Slowly, she becomes distant. Her attention wanes, and the affection he once received starts to feel like it's slipping away. He doesn't understand it. What happened, he asks himself. I've been nothing but kind. Then one day, it hits him. He's been trying so hard to please her, to win her affection, that he forgot one crucial thing. He lost himself along the way. His kindness, while genuine, was rooted in a need for approval rather than his own strength. And boundaries. It wasn't his kindness that she respected. It was his ability to stand firm in who he was, unaffected by her moods or approval. John had been looking for the right answer in the wrong places. In trying to change himself for her, he lost the very thing that would have kept her respect, his own inner power. This is the harsh truth that many men must come to terms with. Power, not kindness, commands true respect. And once you learn to embody this strength, it changes everything. Number 1, emotion. Often trumps logic. There's a man named Michael who's known for his analytical mind. He's always been a problem solver, logical and precise. He understands people on an intellectual level, knowing exactly what to say in every conversation. His approach to life is rooted in strategy, decisions are made with cold calculation, and his intentions are always clear. He believes that if he can be rational and calm in every situation, he'll win anyone over, even a woman who may be emotionally unpredictable. One day, Michael meets Laura. At first, everything seems to go smoothly. He's charming, thoughtful, and consistently logical in how he responds to her. He listens when she talks, offers well-thought-out advice, and ensures that he's always in control of his emotions. However, as time passes, he notices something strange. Laura begins to pull away. Her responses aren't as warm as they once were, and her behavior becomes less predictable. Confused, Michael decides to confront her. He brings up the situation with complete logical reasoning, explaining how he's done everything right, how he's been patient, respectful, and careful with every word. I don't understand, he says. Why is this not working? But instead of responding with reason, Laura's emotions bubble up. She expresses frustration, confusion, and disappointment, none of which Michael can seem to understand. You're too logical, she admits. I don't feel seen. I feel like I'm just another equation for you to solve. It's in this moment that Michael realizes something crucial. Emotion often trumps logic. He had approached the relationship as though it were a series of rational decisions, but she was looking for something deeper. She needed connection, warmth, and emotional resonance, things that logic couldn't provide. In Stoic philosophy, this principle is echoed in the teachings of Epictetus, who wrote, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." Michael's mistake was not acknowledging the emotional landscape of the relationship. His logic, though sound, failed to connect with Laura's needs because he ignored the power of emotional depth. Stoic insight. The Stoic approach doesn't reject emotion, but it emphasizes self-awareness and emotional control. You can't control someone else's emotional responses, but you can control your own. Instead of trying to resolve everything with logic, focus on understanding and respecting the emotional dynamics at play. In relationships, emotions often lead the way, and if you only rely on logic, you might miss what truly matters. Number 2. Most women are attracted to strength, not words. There's a man named David who's always been great with words. Whether it's a charming compliment, a well-timed joke, or a deeply philosophical conversation, he's known for his eloquence. He can talk his way out of any situation, and people listen when he speaks. David prides himself on his ability to express his thoughts clearly and persuasively. One day, David meets Sarah. She's captivating, confident, and intelligent. David, as usual, begins to use his charm, showering her with compliments and engaging in conversations where he impresses her with his knowledge and smooth talking. He talks about his career, his ambitions, and his intellectual pursuits, all the things that he believes will show her he's the right choice. At first, Sarah seems to appreciate the conversation. She smiles, laughs, and gives him the attention he's seeking. But as the weeks go on, she starts to pull away. David can't understand why. He's still charming, still well-spoken, still the man who says all the right things. One evening, as they're out together, something shifts. David notices how Sarah's attention seems to drift toward a man across the room. A man who is not saying a word, but who exudes an undeniable presence. He is quiet, composed, and holds himself with unshakable confidence. The man's physical strength isn't obvious, but the aura he carries speaks volumes. David, feeling a mix of frustration and confusion, decides to confront Sarah. "Why are you so drawn to him?" he asks. "I've been nothing but kind and thoughtful. I've shared everything about myself, yet you're not as interested." Sarah looks at him, a little surprised. "David, it's not about your words. It's about who you are, not what. You say he doesn't need to talk to command respect, he just is. You're always talking about your achievements, your plans, your future. But what you don't see is that a man's true strength is in how he carries himself, how he moves through life without needing approval. It's in this moment that David learns a crucial lesson. Strength, not words, truly attracts. Stoic insight Marcus. Aurelius, a Stoic philosopher, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." In this context, the lesson is simple. Actions speak louder than words. Women are drawn to men who embody strength, not the kind that comes from boasting or over-explaining, but the strength that comes from knowing who you are, being grounded in your beliefs, and acting decisively. A Stoic man doesn't need to convince anyone of his worth. He shows it through his presence, decisions, and actions. It's not about speaking volumes. It's about demonstrating inner power without needing validation. True strength is silent, but undeniable. Number 3. Approval. Seeking repels. Detachment. Attracts. Tom was always the nice guy. He prided himself on being attentive, respectful, and considerate. His phone was always on, ready to answer her calls. He made sure to remember every detail about her life, from her favorite color to the names of her pets. His friends often told him how considerate he was, but Tom didn't just want to be seen as nice. He wanted to be loved, admired, and validated by the women he encountered. He met Jessica at a party, and from the start, he was drawn to her. She was confident, independent, and seemed to have a magnetic presence. Tom, in his usual fashion, began doing everything he could to win her attention. He complimented her relentlessly, made sure she felt special, and always went out of his way to make her feel comfortable. At first, Jessica seemed to appreciate the attention, but soon Tom noticed that something was off. Despite all his efforts, she seemed to pull away. She responded to his texts late, cancelled plans last minute, and began spending more time with other people. Tom, confused, reached out to her directly. "I don't understand," he said. "I've been kind, attentive, and respectful. Why aren't you interested?" Jessica looked at him, a hint of sympathy in her eyes. "Tom," she said gently, "it's not that I don't appreciate your kindness. It's just, when you're constantly seeking approval, I can't help but feel like I'm the one in control. It's exhausting, and I don't feel the same connection anymore. You're always trying to please me, but I need someone who's whole on his own, someone who doesn't need constant reassurance." Tom sat back stunned. For the first time, he realized that approval-seeking wasn't a sign of affection, it was a sign of neediness. He wasn't offering something genuine. He was offering validation, desperately hoping it would be returned. The more he sought her approval, the more distant she became. Stoic insight in Stoic philosophy. The idea of detachment is essential to finding inner peace. Epictetus famously said, "Freedom is the only thing you cannot have unless you relinquish everything else." This doesn't mean detaching from others in an unfeeling way, but rather detaching from the need for their approval. A Stoic man operates from a place of inner strength. He doesn't seek external validation because he's already grounded in his self-worth. He doesn't need to be loved or admired by everyone because his value is not contingent on others' opinions. Detachment, then, is not about not caring. It's about not needing. When you operate without constantly seeking approval, you send a message that you are complete in yourself, and that's what attracts respect and admiration. Women, like anyone else, are drawn to someone who is confident in his own identity, not someone who is constantly proving his worth. When you're detached, you're not giving pieces of yourself away for approval. You're living in alignment with your own principles, and this is incredibly magnetic. It creates an air of mystery, a confidence that isn't desperate for attention, and that is far more intriguing than a man who seeks constant validation. Number 4, you can't change her nature, but you can master yours. Alex was the kind of guy who believed in the power of change. He thought that with enough time and effort, anyone, especially a woman, could be changed. He had a tendency to believe that, with the right encouragement, understanding, and guidance, people could evolve into someone better, someone who suited his vision of a perfect relationship. He met Emily, a woman who was independent, free-spirited, and lived life on her own terms. Alex, who liked to think of himself as a fixer, was immediately intrigued by her. He admired her energy, but also saw areas where he believed she could improve. She was a bit impulsive, occasionally reckless, and sometimes overly guarded. He thought if he just showed her how life could be better if she was more open, more rational, and less impulsive, he could help her grow. So Alex went to work. He began giving Emily advice, telling her how to approach situations differently, suggesting ways she could change aspects of her life to make it better. He was always guiding her, subtly nudging her to make decisions he believed were more aligned with his values. At first, Emily seemed receptive. She listened, engaged with him, and sometimes even adopted some of his suggestions. But over time, she became more distant. She stopped sharing as much, stopped seeking his opinion, and even started avoiding his advice altogether. Alex didn't understand. Why would she ignore me? I'm only trying to help her be better, he thought. One evening, after a particularly frustrating argument, Emily finally said, "Alex, I appreciate that you want to help, but I don't need fixing. I'm not looking for someone to change me. I'm looking for someone who accepts me as I am. You can't change who I am. I'm not broken." The harsh truth hit Alex in the gut. He couldn't change Emily. No one could change someone else unless they themselves wanted to change. She was who she was, and that was beyond his control. What he failed to realize, however, was that while he couldn't change her, he could master himself. Instead of focusing on molding her into his ideal vision, he needed to focus on controlling his own behavior, mastering his emotions, and setting healthy boundaries. In trying to change her, he lost sight of the most important thing, mastering his own nature, Stoic insight. The Stoics often spoke about the importance of mastering oneself rather than trying to control others. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." The key to true power lies in self-control, not in trying to change others. It's not about fixing or molding someone else according to your preferences. Instead, it's about accepting people for who they are and working on yourself. The Stoic path teaches that you can't control other people, their actions, or their emotions, but you can control how you respond, how you behave, and how you shape your own life. In relationships, trying to change the other person only leads to frustration and resentment, but by focusing on your own mastery, you become more grounded, more attractive, and more resilient. The Stoic wisdom here is clear. Master yourself first, and the world around you will shift accordingly. Number 5. Many women test boundaries. Respect yourself. First, Jake was always the easygoing type. He liked to please others, especially. When it came to women, he never wanted to cause any drama or conflict, so he often let things slide. He believed that being agreeable and flexible would make him more likable and keep the peace. If a woman asked for something, he'd go out of his way to accommodate her, even if it made him uncomfortable. He thought that the more he gave, the more he would receive in return. He met Sophie, a vibrant and charismatic woman. She was fun, spontaneous, and a little unpredictable. At first, Jake admired her confidence and the way she seemed to take charge of every situation. But as their relationship progressed, Sophie began testing his boundaries. She would ask him to do things that made him uncomfortable, such as canceling plans with his friends or staying out late when he had an important meeting the next morning. Every time Jake hesitated or said no, she would push back, questioning his commitment and making him feel guilty. One evening, she suggested they go on a last-minute trip, even though Jake had a work deadline the next day. Jake, feeling conflicted, reluctantly agreed to go along with it, thinking that if he didn't, it might make her think he didn't care. But this time, something in him snapped. He realized he wasn't respecting himself by constantly saying yes to things he didn't want to do. The next day, he decided to set a boundary. When Sophie brought up another spontaneous plan, he said, "Sophie, I care about you, but I also have responsibilities I need to prioritize. I'm not going to cancel my work for this." Sophie was taken aback. "I didn't expect that from you," she replied. "You've always just gone along with what I wanted." Jake stood firm. "I've realized that respecting myself means making decisions that align with my values. I can still care for you and set boundaries that protect my time and energy." Sophie paused, then nodded slowly. She didn't like it at first, but over time she respected Jake more for standing up for himself. She realized that a man who respected his own boundaries was far more attractive than someone who was constantly bending to her will. Stoic insight. The Stoics taught the importance of self-respect and self-control in relationships. Seneca said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." In other words, true freedom comes not from being at the mercy of others, but from knowing your own worth and asserting your boundaries. Many women, like Sophie, may test your boundaries, not out of malice but out of curiosity or a desire to see how much they can push. This is not an attack on your character, but a natural dynamic in relationships. The key, however, is not to allow this behavior to slide or to think that by giving, and you'll be loved more. Respecting yourself first is not just about saying no when needed, but also about consistently showing that you value your time, energy, and principles. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and a clear demonstration of strength. It establishes the framework for any healthy relationship as it teaches others how to treat you. It's not about being rigid or unyielding, but about knowing when to stand firm and when to compromise. A Stoic man respects himself and those around him, but never at the cost of his own integrity. Number 6. Beauty fades, character doesn't. Ethan had always been captivated by beauty. He grew up with a strong belief that physical attraction was one of the most important things in a relationship. From his teenage years, he was drawn to women who turned heads, those who had the perfect smile, flawless skin, and a graceful presence. He thought that beauty was a reflection of value. If someone was beautiful, they had more to offer. When he met Mia, she was the embodiment of everything he'd ever admired. Stunningly beautiful, with long, flowing hair and sparkling eyes, she captured his attention instantly. At first, their connection was all about chemistry and attraction. Ethan was enamored by her looks and couldn't get enough of her. The more he complimented her, the more he wanted to be around her. To him, beauty was the most important thing in the world. However, as time went on, Ethan began to notice something. Mia's appearance began to change. Her once youthful complexion started showing signs of age, and the luster of her hair began to fade. But what struck Ethan more than her physical changes was how her character had begun to reveal itself. She became increasingly impatient, less considerate of others, and showed a lack of depth in her conversations. He realized that while she was still beautiful, her inner world lacked the qualities he valued most: kindness, humility, and wisdom. One day, Ethan found himself thinking about their relationship and wondering if he was still drawn to Mia because of her beauty or because of who she truly was. He couldn't help but reflect on a quote he once heard: "Beauty is a great ornament, but it is character that holds the world." It struck him like a thunderbolt. As their relationship progressed, Ethan found himself less interested in Mia's appearance and more concerned about her true character. He realized that the sparkle in her eyes faded as the years went by, but her character, her ability to be compassionate, thoughtful, and resilient, remained much more significant. He also came to understand that beauty was temporary, but a person's character, how they treat others, their values, their integrity, was what would define the longevity of their connection. True attraction, Ethan learned, wasn't about the surface. It was about the deeper qualities that would stand the test of time. Stoic insight. The Stoics valued virtue above all else. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What we do now echoes in eternity." Stoicism teaches that character, one's virtue, integrity, and wisdom is the foundation of a fulfilling life. Physical beauty, while pleasant, is fleeting and transient. No matter how youthful, healthy, or attractive someone is, time will eventually erode those external qualities. But a person's character remains and grows. In relationships, it's important to remember that beauty fades over time, but character doesn't. The external allure will diminish, but a person's core essence, their kindness, how they treat others, their emotional intelligence, and their ability to persevere through adversity will only strengthen as they grow older. When you value character over beauty, you build connections that are far more lasting and meaningful. A Stoic man understands that true attraction is rooted in virtue. When you focus on character, both in yourself and others, you develop deep, meaningful connections that withstand the tests of time. Your inner world, your thoughts, and your values define who you are and shape the relationships you build. Beauty fades, but a person's character remains a lasting foundation for any connection. Number 7. With a story-driven, detailed explanation. 7. The harsh truth. Most women respect power, not kindness. David was the kind of man who prided himself on being generous and thoughtful. He always believed that kindness and compassion were the qualities that would win a woman's heart. Whenever he was in a relationship, he would go out of his way to make sure the woman he was with felt cared for and cherished. He'd send flowers, for no reason, write thoughtful notes, and always go above and beyond to show his affection. To him, kindness was the ultimate sign of respect. When he met Clara, David was immediately captivated. She was confident, ambitious, and had a fierce independence about her. David, in his usual way, showered her with kindness. He complimented her relentlessly, offered to help her with anything she needed, and made sure she always felt supported. Yet despite his efforts, Clara didn't seem to fully appreciate him. She was polite, but there was a certain distance between them that David couldn't quite understand. One night, after a long conversation about their relationship, Clara finally revealed something David hadn't expected. "David, I like you," she said, "but I feel like you're always trying to please me, and it's not attractive. It's not about being mean, but I respect strength and self-assurance. I need a man who knows his worth, who doesn't bend over backwards to gain my approval." David was taken aback. "But I thought kindness was what you wanted. I thought showing how much I care was the key to getting closer." Clara shook her head. "Kindness is important, but respect and attraction come from power. Not the kind of power that comes from being controlling or dominant, but the power that comes from self-respect and inner strength. When a man knows who he is, when he doesn't need to seek approval or validation, it's magnetic. That's the kind of strength I'm drawn to." Stoic insight. The Stoics often spoke about the concept of inner strength and self-mastery. Power, in the Stoic sense, isn't about domination or controlling others, but about mastery of oneself. Understanding your values, standing firm in your beliefs, and not being easily swayed by external opinions or circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This could be interpreted as a call to embrace your own strength, instead of seeking validation or approval from others. True power is self-sufficiency, the ability to stand your ground, live by your principles, and not need constant reassurance. In relationships, women respect strength because it signals confidence, self-assurance, and emotional stability. While kindness is important, it can sometimes be misinterpreted as a need for validation. Power, on the other hand, comes from a deep sense of self-worth and autonomy. When a man is strong in his beliefs, self-respecting, and confident in his own decisions, it creates a kind of attraction that's not based on external validation, but on internal integrity. The key takeaway here is that power doesn't mean being harsh or domineering. It means knowing your value, being comfortable in your own skin, and not allowing others to determine your worth. When you cultivate this kind of internal strength, it naturally commands respect and attraction. This point underscores the Stoic principle of self-mastery and how it aligns with the deeper dynamics of human attraction. Power doesn't come from seeking approval or bending to someone else's will. It comes from mastering yourself and standing firm in your own value. Final thought. The Stoic perspective on relationships and attraction challenges many of the conventional beliefs that society often pushes. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about embracing your true self, cultivating inner strength, and standing firm in your values. By understanding the deeper dynamics at play, you can build stronger, more authentic connections that are grounded in mutual respect, not in superficial attraction or approval seeking. In relationships, remember, self-respect is the foundation of true power. Character is the quality that endures, and inner strength is what attracts others, not desperate acts of kindness or constant validation. If you live by these Stoic principles, you'll find that the relationships you form will be far more meaningful, resilient, and genuine. True attraction comes from being the best version of yourself, and that starts with mastering your own mind, actions, and beliefs. The harsh truth may be uncomfortable, but it's necessary to understand. In the long run, respect, strength, and character will always outweigh temporary beauty, pleasing gestures, or the need for constant approval. Focus on developing your inner power, and you'll naturally attract the right kind of people into your life.